what's your take on Gary Webb? Obviously, he exposed the CIA drug trade. There were some suspicious circumstances in his suicide, a double shotgun blast to the head. I mean, we got heat at the time for even questioning, you know, if that was plausible, if he indeed was suicidal. I believe that was back in 2004. Did you research that? Did you look into that to see if it was plausible that he was suicidal? We know he was talking about, you know... Like,
well, he talked to Alex and said, I am not suicidal. He made it very clear. So did the D.C. madam. Yeah. She made it very clear. She said, I can tell you right now, if somebody kills me, I'm not in the frame of mind to commit suicide. We've heard that over and over again, and yet that doesn't stop them from saying somebody committed suicide.
It's amazing that, you know, Alex makes the point often that he's never going to be in that mindset to commit suicide, and a lot of people do say that. Ultimately, it turns out to be tragic. We'll be back after the break. We're going to take more of your calls. John Rappaport coming up at the bottom of the hour. It's the Alex Jones Show live on this Sunday edition. Stay tuned, Infowars.com. Back tomorrow with David Knight riding shotgun. We're going to go to more of your calls. Coming up in the next segment is John Rappaport to talk about the CDC whistleblower, Ebola, and more. But now we're going to go to Andrew in Illinois to talk about riot control. Andrew, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I was calling about there's this article in the American Industrial Hygiene Association Journal that talks about the liberation of hydrogen cyanide and hydrogen chloride, which is, you know, hydrochloric acid, during high temperature dispersion of CS, riot control agent. That's what they used in Ferguson. So the reporters were being subjected to hydrogen cyanide and hydrochloric acid when those smoke grenades were used.
So is that a new development that they're deploying that?
They don't want to talk about the side effects of deploying that agent.
Well, they're always talking about these non-lethal things that they use on people, and I think it was you, Paul, that put out the article about them temporarily blinding people. It's a new device that they're trying to sell to the police. Yeah, these non-lethal things like rubber bullets and CS gas and tasers are not really non-lethal. And while I'm here riding shotgun, I'd be remiss to say that we were talking before about Gary Webb. You said he was shot twice in the head with a shotgun. It was a pistol, specifically 38. So,
as I said in the interim there, I'm from the UK and we're completely disarmed, so I cannot distinguish between different kinds of weaponry. They're all the same to me.
Just know we're going to get a lot of comments about that if you don't mention that. So there we are. There's the correction. But nevertheless, it's still, what happened to him is still horrendous, and it's still an obvious murder.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions at the time, I remember. And you just had an article up there on screen about this company that's created a weapon that blinds protesters. If you could get that back up, of course, we know in Ferguson that they deployed tear gas, they deployed all these militarized tactics, not only against protesters, but against the media. And now there's, you know, new police compliance weapon, blinds targets, retinal obfuscation gun, a new tool for militarized law enforcement. And it's kind of bizarre that they would put a gun with bullets surrounding it on there. Obviously, that's not how the system works. They don't actually explain how it works in the promo for the company, and they sell numerous weapons to law enforcement authorities. So I guess we wait with anticipation, David, about the next new toy that the militarized police state will be deploying against protesters and journalists.
See how they'll comply, make us comply. That's a compliance weapon. I love the euphemism there. It's very much like you see coming out of the Pentagon all the time, right?
I mean, it's pain compliance. I think they used a similar term in the promo for the new weapon that they've got coming out, I believe, in December. Pain compliance, which again is basically torture. That's how they enact their new measures in the new militarized police state in America. And in fact, since I've been in Austin, I've noticed that basically you live in an occupied city. There are police officers on every corner. In Britain, for example, there's an argument for what we call bobbies on the beat, but generally it's like a couple of police dispersed throughout several different areas of the city of London. But here, it seems like, David, there are a phalanx of cops, of law enforcement authorities almost on every single street corner. It seems like an occupied zone in Austin.
Yeah, you're probably downtown around 6th Street.
Exactly,
That definitely is an occupied zone. When I went to England in the 80s, I was struck by how they actually did at that time have police walking beats, and that was, I thought, a very healthy thing. When I went back 20 years later, they were pretty much starting to get into cars like the American police here, and that means that they're not really doing anything to protect the citizens. Instead, they're really kind of looking for traffic violations and other things like that. That really focuses them on a completely different perspective.
It seems that way, that they're looking for minor infractions. And we're going to go to more calls in a moment. The call screen has gone dark for the moment. Let's just throw to whoever the next caller is on the line. If you could go ahead and go to the next caller. Who have we got on the air?
This is Indigo Kid.
Indigo Kid, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I'll never kill myself either, so we can have a non-suicide pact between the three of us. I was going to call Alex the other day and tell him that I thought that there was going to be maybe gas attacks in New York City subways and in France, and then a couple hours after that, the Iraqi prime minister said the same thing, so I thought that was a weird connection. And I have a bad memory, but I believe they've done drills before in New York City for gas attacks. They could blame it on Assad, saying he's working for ISIS, say we need to have boots on the ground. If they really wanted to run with it, they could say it was Iran working with ISIS.
I mean, there are a lot of scenarios. I think, last year they really were going for the chemical weapons attack in Syria. Of course, the MIT report came out later on, which proved that the chemical weapons attack in Ghouta could not have possibly been launched from a government area. That kind of derailed the Obama administration's policy at that time. Of course, we had a lot of people within the military itself rebelling against that attack. Now we've got an attack on Syria, airstrikes on Syria, under the cover of fighting ISIS terrorists. But David, do you think there's a chemical weapons attack or a biological attack in the United States that they could use as justification for a real clampdown that we've been expecting for a while?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's not a matter of if, but when they'll do something like that. I mean, that's essentially what we see happening with 9/11. That's what we see happening with the 7/7 attacks in the UK. That's why Cameron is trying to demonize anybody that would speak out against that tactic. False flag tactics are something that every government has used, and it's a very well-known tactic. It's even now becoming a very common plot device in virtually all the movies. So it's a difficult thing for them to pull off, but they still can because they control the media. They control the narrative, and the media, wants access to them, will do whatever they say, essentially. So that's, they've had Operation Mockingbird, the CIA controlling the press, as we mentioned earlier. That's how we got onto Gary Webb, the fact that they would have 17 journalists dedicated to destroy his credibility because of what he had revealed about the CIA's drug operations. That's a very telling sign. So, yes, they can do that, and certainly Alex has been fearful of that and talking about how he felt that was something that was impending.
And, of course, we had the Oklahoma beheading a couple of days ago, linked again to Anwar al-Awlaki, who, of course, dined at the Pentagon 3 months after 9/11, having been the mastermind behind the 9/11 hijackers who flew the plane into the Pentagon. So we can cover that later with the ties between al-Awlaki and the other patsies in the United States that have been behind domestic terror plots, and question whether the Oklahoma beheading was one of those. But we got John Rappaport coming up to talk about Ebola, the CDC whistleblower, and autism. This is the Alex Jones Show Live, Infowars.com. Stay tuned.
You've heard about the essential qualities of iodine when it comes to your well-being, and you've read the opinions of top experts regarding this good member of the halogen family. Still, reports indicate that iodine is absent in sufficient amounts from the daily lives of countless people worldwide. Now, our extra-strength new nascent iodine formula is here, Survival Shield X2, leading the way into the next generation of super high-quality nascent iodine. InfoWars Life Survival Shield X2 is derived from 200+ million-year-old salt solutions found more than 7,000 feet below the Earth's surface. The result is a unique nascent iodine that is both concentrated and free of unwanted additives, genetically modified ingredients, and completely vegan. We even pre-screen our Survival Shield X2 iodine for radiation. Pure, clean, and sourced from deep within the Earth, X2 nascent iodine is